right, 2 minutes after. I think we can get started. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Adam Koka, and I'm a marketing strategist at Data Groomer. Welcome to today's webinar, The Power of Strategy and Analytics in Revenue Operations, Insights from Maximizing Revenue in Sports. This is part of Data Groomer's webinar series, which we kicked off in October with an exciting session in Salesforce and AI. Now, in our second webinar, we're continuing to bring superstar customers, prospects, partners, and industry thought leaders to explore the hottest topics in tech, covering data, Salesforce, AI, revenue ops, and so much more. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by three outstanding panelists who bring incredible expertise from the world of sports. Jonathan Stevens, Senior Manager of Marketing Technology with the LA Rams, Chris Paolino, Senior Director of Business Analytics with the Professional Women's Hockey League, and Jake Radelet, CRM and Analytics Manager with the Texas Rangers. Together, they'll dive into how strategy and analytics are transforming revenue operations in sports. Just a quick note that this session will be recorded, and the recording will be sent out to all attendees afterwards. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jake, who will provide a little more detail on the introductions and guide us into today's session. Jake, the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Thanks to Data Groomer for hosting today's webinar as well. Also want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us here today. Whether you're joining us live right now on our webinar or going back and watching the recording later, appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join us. Wanted to first just lay out a little agenda for us, kind of what we'll cover in today's webinar. So wanted to first start off with some introductions for our three panelists here. Especially for those that are joining today that may not yet work in sports, but may be interested. The three of us have really taken three very different routes of getting into the sports world. So we wanted to cover each of our paths and kind of show our backgrounds there. We then wanted to get into the sports business department structure, just kind of how sports teams are structured. Again, for folks that may not have experience working in the world of professional sports, and really insight into that business side and how these teams are structured. Then we'll get into our discussion around revenue operations, and then the rise of business analytics in RevOps, kind of that new frontier. At the end, like Adam said, we will have time for a Q&A portion. So within the Zoom controls, you do have the opportunity to put in questions. So please put those in as we go through. And then at the end, we will have time to hopefully get to most of your questions. All right, so let's begin with our introductions. So as Adam said, my name is Jake Radelet. I'm the CRM and Analytics Manager with the Texas Rangers. Wanted to kind of lay out my background here. So originally, I'm actually from Colorado. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, attended the University of Colorado, where I got my degree in communication. Growing up, I was a big outdoorsman. I loved camping, hiking, fishing, skiing too. Not as much skiing in Texas now that I'm down here. Was actually in Boy Scouts growing up, earned the rank of Eagle Scout. But all my sports teams growing up are laid out there. So, all your Denver teams, Broncos, Avalanche, Rockies, Nuggets, and of course, my CU Buffs. After graduating from college, I got my first professional role at a Salesforce consulting firm that became part of Publicis Sapient, one of the premier consulting partners with Salesforce. After working with Publicis Sapient for about 2 years, I moved on to a role with a tech company called GoGo. You may have heard of GoGo before. We do Wi-Fi on airplanes. So they do a lot of commercial aviation, but I was specifically on the business aviation side. And I served as an in-house Salesforce business analyst for them. For me, though, I always loved sports. Sports was the passion, baseball especially as well. So I always, kind of kept that eye out for a role in the sports industry in a way that I could kind of break in. And so after about 4 or 5 years working in tech and consulting, I found this role with the Rangers, ended up being a great fit. And I moved down here to the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas to take my new role in 2021. So I just completed my 4th season with the Texas Rangers. It's been a widely varied range of seasons. My first year was actually the first 100-loss season in Texas Rangers history. But then 2 years later, the exact opposite, we had the very first world championship in Rangers history. So pretty cool getting to do that, be a part of the parade. And then, of course, got some pretty cool hardware with that championship ring. So very exciting there. Within these last 4 years, I've also had a few cool opportunities to partner with Salesforce on some speaking opportunities. One of which is pictured there is a chance I had to speak at the Dreamforce conference in 2023 with two of my colleagues here at the Rangers. And then we also had the opportunity to do a Salesforce marketing video that kind of outlined how the Rangers use Tableau and Salesforce. So it was featured in that as well. That's kind of it for my background. Chris, I want to hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Yeah, so this is my windy timeline, but so I'm currently our senior director of business analytics at the PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League. I joined the league in July of this year, so just still a few months in. We're 5 games into our season 2, so if anybody is interested in taking a peek and kind of getting into PWHL women's hockey, we've just started our season 2, so it's been exciting so far. Previous to this, I worked for the Carolina Hurricanes for 3 years as their director of business strategy and analytics. But going way back, as a personal life, I grew up in New York, went to Union College in upstate New York. So all my kind of teams there are still hometown teams are all New York based. So from New York, from Union, I got my degree in psychology, and I went out to get my MBA at Clarkson University, moved south to South Carolina, where I actually began my career in healthcare analytics and healthcare administration. So very different industry, but a lot of the foundational skills that I learned within data and analytics and strategy came from the industry from the beginning. So I give a lot of credit to the healthcare industry for kind of helping me get to where I am today, and some of the fantastic organizations and leaders that I work with. And so moving on from there, moved up to North Carolina and, moved into enterprise analytics, revenue cycle analytics at UNC Health. And, had a great experience there as well, and kind of build up some more, analytics and data skills there. And yeah, made the jump to sports in 2021, coming out of the bubble seasons of sports globally. And so felt it was the perfect time to join, and kind of never looked back. And it's been an incredible career. And I've been fortunate to work for a lot of great people and a lot of great organizations in my time so far. And so I'll pass it over to Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So long and weary my road has been. That's a line from my favorite song, I Am the Highway by Audioslave, and I think that encapsulates the mess that you see before you on this slide. There's been quite a journey to get to sports through all kinds of different avenues. So appreciate you guys joining today. I'm Jonathan Stevens. I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing Technology with the Los Angeles Rams organization. I grew up in Kansas City as a Chiefs and Royals fan. Bonus points to anybody who can spot me in the Netflix quarterback series. I'll give you one hint that it's at this wonderful stadium behind me at SoFi. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, and football growing up. Alongside sports, I had a deep love of music, played in several bands growing up, so that was a big part of my life as well. So after high school, I attended Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida, where I earned degrees in both audio engineering and entertainment business. From there, I moved to Seattle and landed my first job at a heavy metal record label and recording studio called Black Sheep Studios. Eventually, I started my own production and licensing company called Hollywood Underground. We found some success placing productions in TV shows like Game of Thrones and Portlandia, some video games like Saints Row the Third, so had a lot of fun doing that. After 6 years, I decided to move back to Kansas City to co-found a marketing agency with a childhood best friend. This experience ultimately led to my first tech role with Rhythm Engineering, which is an automated traffic signal technology company. In 2016, I became the marketing technology manager at American Century Investments, where I focused on marketing retirement plans to individuals and advisors. I also had the opportunity there to speak at the Dreamforce conference in 2018. In 2019, I made the move to California to manage revenue operations for Revenue.io, which is an AI sales enablement platform. And in 2022, I was thrilled to join the Los Angeles Rams in my current role, where I've been able to combine my passion for tech, marketing, sports, and entertainment. So with that, let's kind of get going on this. So as professionals deeply immersed in the intersection of technology, data, and sports, our focus has always been on optimizing operations to maximize revenue growth. We're excited to walk you through how these principles come to life in the unique structure of sports organizations. So let's start by looking at the backbone of a sports team's business. Revenue generation in sports is much more than selling tickets. It's a complex ecosystem involving game day operations, sponsorships, media rights, merchandise, and much more. This structure is supported by various specialized departments working together to fuel the organization's financial engine. Here's a high-level view of how all these pieces fit together. So let me start by opening up the floor real quick, and I want to ask a question of Jake. What was your biggest surprise or challenge coming into the sport for your first sports organization?
Yeah, for me, coming from consulting and then tech, I think the biggest learning curve that I found was the sponsorships area of our business. Totally unique to this, kind of sports and entertainment world, and really kind of a different structure of a B2B sales organization than anything that I had experienced before. So for me, that was quite a learning curve. As a fan, when I thought of sponsorships, I always thought signage in the stadium, naming rights in the stadium, stuff like that. But there's so much beyond that, all these sports teams do with their business partners. So learning that side of the business for me, I think, was the biggest learning curve, just because it was so different than anything I had experienced before. It was actually one of my first, really my very first big project here when I got to the Rangers, was implementing CRM for our sponsorships department. They had not had a CRM system before. So it was a big challenge, not only to do a brand new implementation, but also just kind of learn this entirely new business unit. So I'd say for me, definitely that sponsorship side was the biggest surprise in my mind.
But Chris, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's not necessarily any of the navigating the ecosystem here. For me, the biggest challenge joining the industry was, coming from healthcare and coming from a large health system kind of conglomerate where we had over 200 seasoned professionals in analytics, IT, and data engineering, is coming to sports and trying to figure out where you can get assistance, where you can get help, what resources there are in the industry, learning, how you can network. And so that was the biggest surprise, but also I think one of the biggest benefits that I've seen about the industry is our collaboration, right? We found this massive network. We've kind of built this massive network across sports business professionals. That's kind of why Jonathan, Jake, and I all met through the network, and we're all super collaborative. And I think that was once I kind of found out kind of how we can get help and how we can get assistance with things. You're not in it, kind of alone in this world. You have a massive network out there.
Yeah, Chris, that's a really good point. I mean, just the collaboration within the industry, like you said, is really different than anything I had ever experienced too. I mean, in no other industry are you talking so closely to, your competitors really, but competitors, we may be competitors on the field, but we're really not competitors on the business side. Jonathan operating in LA, me in the Dallas area, and then Chris, originally in Carolina, now with his new league. So I think that's really conducive to just the collaboration, and it almost has like a small business structure when you get in to these teams, which is funny to say because all these teams, it's such big brands, big presences, but when you get in it almost has that small business sort of feel. But then the industry as a whole, it's just so open and collaborative. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's been a huge help for me, kind of coming in from software and financial services, really coming into this industry blind, not really knowing much, and yeah, having that collaborative group we have, and it's really just helped me ramp up tremendously over the years. So I think for me, like, that's obviously a big one, but also the biggest surprise I think for me is just looking at all these channels of revenue. This all comes with an abundance of data. It all comes with an abundance of different structured data. So really figuring out how to put this all together in a streamlined way has been a real challenge. And oftentimes needs creative solutions, especially when you're dealing with like a Ticketmaster, which is more of a B2C model, and you're trying to kind of fit that in your B2B model. Definitely need some creative approaches with that. So cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to look at a little bit at the sports revenue departments. So the success of each revenue stream really relies on the seamless collaboration of multiple teams working together within a revenue operations framework. For example, the sales, service, and marketing teams are essential for driving game day and sponsorship revenue, ensuring fan engagement, and delivering value to corporate sponsors. So as you can see here, revenue operations and analytics play a critical role in supporting every revenue stream, ensuring these teams have the data, systems, and processes needed to work efficiently. This is why revenue operations is such a critical function within any organization. By centralizing and aligning these efforts, it drives streamlined data-driven decisions, making that fuel sustainable growth. So I want to open up the floor real quick again. And Jake or Chris, do you have anything else you wanted to add to this slide?
Yeah, so just one thing I wanted to just touch on, I think we brushed on this a little bit before, but just some quick advice for those that are interested in a role in sports. To me, this is a great slide to help understand kind of the rev ops at large, right, in sports industry. Most times it is best, at least in my experience, it's best to identify kind of your niche and where your skills align, background, abilities, to a best fit. If you say to a prospective employer, you'll take any job and just want to get your foot in the door, that isn't as appealing to employers versus an approach where you've done your research, right? And you can express why you'd be a good fit for X function. I think that's to us, if you come with that approach and you say, hey, this is kind of where I feel like I would be best for this is my background. I think I could provide value in this department or sub-department in your organization. I think that's the best route.
Love it. So now that we've covered how different departments contribute to the various revenue streams within a sports organization, let's take a step back and look at the overarching framework that ties all these efforts together, which is revenue operations. Revenue operations is a strategic approach that aligns and centralizes the functions, processes, and technology across sales, marketing, customer success, and other revenue-generating teams. Its primary goal is to eliminate silos, streamline operations, and create a unified system that drives predictable and scalable revenue growth. Companies with aligned sales, marketing, and customer success teams report a 19% faster growth rate and 15% higher profitability compared to those with siloed operations. So let's open up the floor real quick once again. And this time, question for Chris. Where do you see the biggest wins in most organizations by adopting the revenue operations framework?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Each of these bullet points are critical in my mind, but I always kind of go to that first bullet point is creating that mission alignment, right, within your RevOps organization or within your organization, because that's kind of the central piece here is getting everyone aligned to a common mission, and that incorporates creating key performance indicators that are transparent and visible to the organization, shared goals, objectives, and really identifying that and creating that framework that's going to enable you to kind of grow together. Siloed departments and operating individual organizations within one doesn't necessarily, or in most cases, doesn't lead to the best growth or highest growth that you can possibly get to. So I would definitely start with trying to figure out how to get more aligned and creating that framework.
Great answer. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I always like to look at that people side of the wheel. For me, that's one of the most critical parts, just having alignment between all the people within your revenue operations area, all being aligned towards that shared goal, that common purpose, and, really all working together in harmony instead of everyone just kind of doing their own thing separately. Here at the Rangers, we actually got a new chief revenue officer a couple years ago, and he has really put a big emphasis on our alignment between our ticket sales, sponsorship, marketing, analytics, and really everything under that revenue operations side, and really stressing like, hey, this is all one team, working in harmony together. We have a clearly defined purpose and a stated mission, and I think really just getting that people alignment, I think is huge before you even get into the other sides of things. So for me, that's always the one that sticks out.
Love it.
All right. Cool. So we want to kind of dive a little bit more into RevOps and kind of what this looks like. So we laid out this little pyramid here, and this pyramid kind of represents the core framework of what revenue operations is. And it's really built on these three foundational layers. We look at data operations as the foundation, system operations on top of that, and then at the very top is your analytics peak. For that data operations base, that really ensures that we have that centralized data warehouse, a golden record architecture, and just a clean and compliant data pipelines that feed us accurate, actionable information into our organization. That next layer going into system operations, that's where tools like a unified CRM, marketing automation platforms, lead routing systems, these all come together to create that integrated tech stack that supports sales, sponsorship, service, and marketing efforts, simultaneously and seamlessly. And then kind of at the very top where it all really comes together is that analytics layer. So that's really what's going to leverage that foundation that we built from our data layer and then systems to provide those real-time insights, campaign performance analysis, and just give us those data-driven insights that will optimize every aspect of the business. Together, it's really these three layers in harmony that create this seamless ecosystem that drive efficiency, scalability, and revenue growth ultimately. So question I wanted to ask for you guys, Jonathan, I'll start with you. I mean, in your career, you've had a lot of experience in that data operations layer in your career. So can you speak to the importance of that pillar within revenue ops?
Yeah, so really that data operations layer is the foundation for everything to be built upon. So really look at it as the roots of your tree. If these roots are not stable, everything above it is going to be shaky, it's going to fall, it's going to be inaccurate, bad data. So really from my experience, paid attribution has been the holy grail. So really revenue attribution, and that's really going to tell you how buttoned up your revenue operations is, because if you're able to connect the dots from that conversion point back to your CRM opportunities and measure back the pipeline and the revenue that you've been generating from these campaigns, and most importantly, you're not losing data in the process with duplication or people falling off your landing pages, that's really going to be where you have the biggest kind of barometer to say, okay, I'm doing revenue operations right, because not only do I have all this buttoned up, but it's really a good sign that your sales and marketing data, operations, analytics are all working in harmony, and you're really kind of striving towards that perfect kind of balance of, optimization and efficiency. So on top of that, I want to just add a layer too. So like Data Groomer has been a huge piece of that. They are a central partner for this process for us. Their ability to streamline data deduplication, ensure accuracy, and maintain hygiene in our CRM has saved us countless hours and avoided costly errors. It's the #1 tool I bring with me to any organization I join. If you've got 17 Jane Does and 26 Bob Smiths sitting in your CRM, you're not doing RevOps right, and your analytics is going to be a mess.
Yeah, there's a reason it's the bottom layer of that pyramid. It's really important to have that foundational layer of your data operations set, because if you don't have that foundation set, then if you try to go into systems right away or your analytics off of that, you're not going to have a good time. For me in my career, I've really had a lot of focus in that system operations bucket, specifically with CRM. Here at the Rangers, we use Salesforce as our CRM provider. And just, again, it's really critical to first have that data operations layer built out before you can really build those systems on top of it. Chris, for you, I feel like in your career, you've had a lot of experience on that tip of the pyramid, the analytics layer. So can you speak to the importance of how, having an efficient analytics team really brings this whole RevOps pyramid all together?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I kind of, my career has been made mostly based thanks to all the data ops and system ops professionals out there. I mean, I started my career, in essentially front end analytics because I had really strong, strong data ops and system ops professionals that kind of fed me data. It was fairly clean, and so I was able to do a lot with it and provide a ton of business value from the start of my career. So it wasn't really until I dipped my toes into the system ops and data ops pillars, around year 4 or 5 of my career, to where I started to see the true value in this entire pipeline. But I would always say you don't build the roof before you kind of build your foundation. You don't start at the roof. If you start with just trying to develop, basic, reports or doing analytics on data you don't fully trust, that's a lot of times actually that does a negative impact to your business. It can actually provide incorrect decision making to leaders, and that's where even your career could erode if you do that. So I would say no matter where you are in this hierarchy or in this pyramid, identify your gaps and try to learn more about where you have gaps, because then you'll become a better professional, and you'll see your career take off.
For sure. There's a reason it's the very top of that pyramid. All right. So on this slide, we wanted to kind of get into what it looks like and what the cost would be of this inefficiency, and if you have your people, data, and systems all kind of operating in silos. So in this slide, it kind of lays out, if we have our sales, service, and marketing all kind of operating in their own silo, doing their own thing. And when these departments operate in these silos, all these inefficiencies really quickly add up. Each team often relies on separate tools. They'll duplicate technology spend and just create redundancies in systems that don't integrate seamlessly, or maybe they don't even integrate at all. It's really this fragmentation that not only increases cost, but also just demands more headcount, because you got to have people to manage all these disconnected processes and manual data reconciliation. And instead of leveraging a centralized data source, teams spend time duplicating efforts, which slows down decision-making and really impacts productivity and ultimately your bottom line. And, really it's these siloed systems and data that lead to these fragmented insights, kind of to Chris's point. If you get these fragmented insights, it really makes it harder to identify opportunities or really get an effective measure on just your overall success as an organization. So by breaking down these silos and centralizing those operations, organizations can really significantly reduce their waste, streamline their technology use, and just empower their teams to focus on driving growth and not just fighting inefficiencies. So here now, kind of the other side, we wanted to show, what is the value of centralizing these efforts. So, when data processes and technology are consolidated across these departments, that's when you have the organization really operating as one unified and efficient machine. That single source of truth from a data standpoint ensures that all teams across sales, marketing, service, sponsorships, they're working off that same data set, eliminating redundancies and miscommunication. As sports teams, we engage with our fans in so many different ways. A fan buying tickets is just one way that we connect with our fans. There's also the marketing aspect, the service side, the merchandise they buy, even other events that they may attend that are adjacent to our ballpark. So if you're really only operating and having a sliver of that, it's just one slice of the pie. So having those all aligned really gives you, I'll take a buzzword from Salesforce, but it's that full 360-degree view of your customer, where you're really getting all angles that your business interacts with those fans. It's really those streamlined processes that create consistency and reduce manual effort. This allows teams to focus on strategic initiatives rather than focus on just kind of digging themselves out of these operational inefficiencies. The centralized tech, and in this example here, we kind of put CRM at the center of everything. It enables seamless collaboration and just real-time insights across multiple different job functions. This alignment will not only drive better decision-making at the top, but it also amplifies the organization's ability to scale, innovate, and just really ultimately maximize revenue potential with even fewer resources and greater impact. So Jonathan, I wanted to pull you in on this one, and it's something you've had a lot of experience with in kind of data systems, and just what's been your experience with technology centralization and the impact it can have?
Yeah, I've seen tremendous impact across the board in the different industries I've been fortunate enough to be a part of. I've really seen firsthand how revenue operations specifically unites departments, aligning around the same data, the same language, the same goals. really when everyone is working from a single source of truth, the silos come down, collaboration flourishes, and the impact transforms everything. So I've had the privilege of witnessing this change at multiple organizations. It's incredible to see how it not only drives efficiency, but also fosters a sense of shared purpose. It's one of those moments that truly brings a smile to your face, knowing that the lasting impact is really there, and this organization is going to be much better off in the future for years to come.
Yep, great points. So here we just kind of wanted to get into, what your organization could kind of look like if it's structured with that RevOps mindset. So, this slide with the structure of having that single revenue ops leader over all these different areas of your business, we really wanted to illustrate the power of what that unified structure can look like, where you have that sales ops, marketing ops, business intelligence, data engineering, service team, all consolidated into that one cohesive department. By doing this, you really remove those silos that we were talking about and just aligns those teams around that shared goal and one mission plan, which eventually, hopefully, will drive that more efficient revenue generation as one single unit. And it's, really want to stress that, that having that single RevOps leader overseeing strategy really is what kind of ensures that cross-functional alignment. That's what really can foster clear accountability and that one unified vision across the board. With teams working collaboratively, leveraging shared insights, shared data, this structure really accelerates growth and efficiency while providing a scalable foundation for long-term success here. So Chris, wanted to pull you in on this one, your experience working for an emerging league in the PWHL, where they've kind of been figuring out this structure. What's your experience been with that as far as structuring your business side?
Yeah, I mean, so this is one of the top reasons, one of the main reasons why I made the jump over to the PWHL, and this is not a way to kind of suck up to who I'm about to talk about, but I had the privilege of interviewing here at the PWHL with our who oversees our business. Click on how critical great leadership is in order for this to work, right? So that revenue operations leader that oversees or manages or kind of is aligns everyone together. It's kind of what Jake was talking about before with their assignment of their the new chief revenue officer. Without that leader who has that that type of leadership and that new growth mindset, right? You're not going to be able to have these RevOps principles put in line. So it's crucial to if you don't have a RevOps leaders now and you want to and an organization wants to make the jump, is to really make sure you find that person with that mindset, because that's who everyone beneath is going to be relying on and dependent on to allow them to do their job and trust them, because that's kind of at the heart of this all is ensuring that everyone is trusted in this structure. And so I'm gonna go quickly through this slide here, but this is kind of just a reiteration of what we already talked about as far as the pillars, but also an extension of the pillar from analytics to optimization. When you have a RevOps or organization in place and you have your data operations, your system operations, you feel like your processes are there and you're already starting to provide really strong analytics to your organization, there's a new lever of optimization where you're kind of just you're again optimizing your entire pipeline. It kind of goes into this in this circle, and now you're really working and you're providing value to your organization. So I'll just kind of leave this slide with the quote at the bottom, just talking about some results from moving to or leveraging RevOps principles. Is that companies leveraging RevOps principles can see about a 10 to 15% or more, right, improvement in customer retention, which is really what we really care about. We really want our customers to keep on coming back and becoming true fans of our brands and our leagues, and by delivering a consistent, high quality experience across touch points. All right, so this is kind of this is the final section here. Just kind of conclude the webinar, but this is really what I think where we all, this roll and rise of business analytics has really given way to really ourselves as panelists and many on the call jobs. I mean, it's been an incredible growth period for business analytics in sports, but also analytics across industries. And so I think this is a perfect time to kind of bring this up. All right, so just kind of reiterate where we were, right? So analytics of revenue operations, this is essentially the new playbook for revenue growth. It's occurred kind of in this shift in the last decade. A lot of other industries have started this shift much earlier, but sports has definitely, over the last decade, has really catalyzed this effort to hire strong analytics professionals across the pillars that we talked about before: data ops, system ops, and then even still front end analysts who can provide data to end users. And so coming from the instinct to data-driven decisions, right? Instinct, experience, knowledge is all still obviously incorporated in decision making, but I think just the pendulum has swung more in the favor of data-driven decisions, honestly for better. I think for all of us, we use data for decision support, and the more information you can get to help justify decision making and instinct and experience, I think we're starting to see a lot of value out of that. And so analytics is now central to maximizing ticket, sponsorship, merchandise, revenue, and other departments, right? Jonathan talked through all of the kind of the business structure, but analytics is really a central component to most business departments, if not all business departments today in sports. And I think that's it's really been an incredible growth period, and I think we're all reaping the benefits from it. And so some key focus area examples that a lot of organizations, leagues, and so forth have taken part in or built even internally is the first one here is dynamic pricing, which, like I said, a lot of other industries have done this potentially decades or so ago. Or, you talk about the airline industry, the hotel industry, right? They've been doing dynamic pricing for a long time, and now definitely have taken part in dynamic pricing significantly. And you actually are starting to see internal teams to individual clubs having the experience to build their own internal dynamic pricing models that actually, in some cases, perform better than third-party vendors who've been doing it for a long time. So you're starting to see even expertise in our internal clubs, surpass, in some cases, models that have been, existing for quite some time, which just goes to show you that, we're all starting to become more self-sufficient, and it's helping us, with our bottom line, but also being less dependent potentially on third parties to do some of this work. Fan segmentation, right? There's been a huge push for personalization and kind of marketing, whether it be email marketing or SMS marketing or whatever the case may be. But also within CRM, our what we want to try to do is understand as much as we possibly can around our customers so we can serve them better. That's really the heart of what we are, right? The fan is everything to us, and we just want to make sure that we know enough to serve the fans better and make their experience better each and every year, and that we know that helps with retention and also helps our brands grow. ROI tracking, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but if you incorporate these principles, what tends to happen, or what you see, is the value significantly outsurpass the expense. So 10x, 15x, 20x the return on investment for doing this. And so it's obviously a huge proponent of moving to a more of a RevOps model. And just as you can see, the impact here that you could experience, right? Higher return on investment, higher profitability as an organization and as a league, and your enhanced fan engagement. So here, kind of we're just diving a little bit more into the components that I talked about before, where within ticketing, sponsorship, merchandising, and concessions, dynamic pricing can boost, in some cases, boost revenue by 15 to 20% or more. forecasting demand, optimizes attendance. We've seen, even, from my, be at the Hurricanes. I mean, I think they're on an 80-game sellout streak right now. So props to the Hurricanes for keeping it going. But I think a lot of teams across across North America are experiencing insane attendance growth. You see a lot of leagues, especially in women's sports, NWSL, WNBA, seeing incredible attendance increases. Obviously there's a multiple of factors there, but what our jobs are is to continue to forecast demand and try to set ourselves up for when we need to push tickets and just providing ways to get us to get butts in seats, right? Because you definitely want that experience to be massive in our arenas. And so sponsorship side, Jake talked about this a little bit before, but analytics can help increase our deal values by 25%. There's a lot of articles over the last 5 to 7 years, especially over the last few years, on the increase in sponsorship in sports. Companies are leaning in. There's a lot of new sponsorship revenue to be had, and companies are seeing the value of it. And in any of these deals these days, there's always a massive data component now. This wasn't necessarily the case years ago, but from my experience and being a part of some of these deals and contracts, data is talked about a lot more now than ever. And so you need to have someone on staff that can help interpret and help provide the information back to the partner based on the agreement. Merchandising and concessions goes without saying, right? If you're able to analyze your merchandising and concessions data, whether it be transactional or customer related, you can reduce waste by 40% or more, and you start to see more personalized promotions, and it gets fans to obviously spend a little bit more, but they're doing it because sometimes they don't even know some things are out there, and then you provide a jersey that they love, and they're like, oh, I'm going to buy that jersey. So it's just trying to meet people where they are. You can go to the next page. And so here on business impact, just kind of high level, some game changing results here. So you start to see some massive impact in financially, right? Which is obviously, I think, what we're talking about here. In a lot of ways, financial growth, 10 to 15% higher renewal rates through segmentation, non-modeling or other types of modeling. And I think one big stat here to talk about is that it's been said that 90% of a fan base can actually not step foot into your arena every year. So that means you have 90% of your fans that are kind of are not attending games, or they're either located somewhere else, or they have factors that are not enabling them to come to your games. So us as analysts and us as professionals have to figure out how to reach them and keep them engaged. And so that helps with non-game day revenue outside of our game events. Operational efficiency, optimize inventory and targeted marketing. We kind of talked about this before, and I'll just end with this conclusion, and without being biased on this, because this has been my career, but I truly believe that analytics is the MVP in revenue ops, right? And it unlocks sustainable growth and fan satisfaction. And just one last thing is honing on that sustainability, or the sustainable word, is that's what we all, I think, all see, right? We all went through a period a few years back where the sports industry was really at a bottom period. It's really a big lull, obviously out of our control. But most of the industry has come out of that period with a new mindset, and we want to make sure that we are sustainable, and that means not just doing the same thing that was done prior, but changing it up. And you're starting to see, that's where you start to see a lot more business strategy, rev ops, and analytics professionals joining organizations to keep the business sustainable. And so I'll finish with kind of one question here to Jake and Jonathan before we open up to some questions here. Where in your organizations are you seeing analytics make the biggest impact right now? And I can start with Jake.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think kind of these new frontiers, like you mentioned, like getting into dynamic pricing is obviously a big one for us. But I feel like, from the analytics side, it just really helps us be a lot more intelligent with our business and who and how we are reaching out to our fans and prospective fans. You know, Jonathan made a point earlier, sports teams, we have so much data available to us. So it's such a challenge just knowing what is valuable, what is useful, what do we actually action on. So I feel like analytics, especially in sports with that massive amount of data, it's really allowed us to, you know, just be more intelligent with what we're looking at and how to better target prospects.
Yeah, I can add to that. So yeah, really, it's huge, and that operational efficiency bullet really rings true on my end, especially living in the world of operations and really supporting all of the departments, including analytics. It's really had the biggest impact on our organization for sure. It's just that cyclical nature of analytics driving decisions, and then the decisions driving the analytics. And to me, that's RevOps in a nutshell. Really gets you kind of out of the spray and pray approach to marketing, especially where you're just kind of, there's untargeted, you're just kind of hoping for the best. And instead, like, you can actually use analytics, and analytics will tell you where to target, and then your targeting is so much more efficient. You're spending far less money. It's really a beautiful thing once you've got it kind of figured out. So I almost equate it to like flying a plane without instruments. If, you're flying blind at that point, and God help you.
Yep. Great. And then I think the last slide here is just in case this is shared, and for those that are interested in sports, I have just some articles here that I think would be interesting for people to read around kind of data telling the story, and how data is becoming, a central part, or, in sports business. And these are just from 2019, 2021. There's been a lot more since then in different media channels. And then there's one book that I put here that I read before I entered the industry, here by Keith Harrison and Scott Buckstein, Sport Business Analytics. I feel like it's a great book, and it has a lot of good information here for those that are interested. So I'll kind of leave that to you guys, and if you're interested, you can find it on Amazon.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys. So to kind of wrap it up for our last 10-ish so minutes here, we wanted to dive into a few of your questions that you guys have been sending in the chat in the Q&A section. Again, if you have any last minute questions you want to throw in there, please add them in there. We have several, so we'll see how many we can get through here. So
real quick, let me just preface this section by saying, any of you sports bettors out there who join solely for insider tips for Sunday, ain't gonna happen. So sorry.
not quite our expertise there, yeah. Here's a good one. So from someone that is not currently working in the sports industry, but is interested in getting started in sports, what tips do you have for someone looking to get started in the sports organization as a job seeker?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit before, but again, I would just preface that it's really important to figure out what your current skills and abilities are, or where if there are certain roles in the industry that you feel like you're interested in, or you want to pursue. Really understand the job description, really understand what they're looking for, and trying to build your your resume, your case around it with legitimate practical experience. Reaching out to people either on LinkedIn, such as ourselves, or others in the industry, is a great first step. But really trying to find where your niche is, and try to target that, versus doing a kind of that spray and pray approach, applying to 1,000 jobs and hoping one hits. From my experience, you enter a black hole at that point, and you might not be as prepared for an interview, versus really honing in on your skill sets.
Yeah, I think I can add to that. I really continuing to build your skill set is a huge one, but also the beauty of revenue operations in particular is it's truly industry agnostic. So you don't have to just be solely focused on one industry. You can spend your time in software, you can spend your time in financial services, and kind of make your way in at some point. Like, I even kind of got started doing my own thing for a while, and that's really what got me started in getting into tech, and then getting myself into sports. So your path doesn't have to be a completely straight path. You can kind of find your way through it.
Yeah, I feel like the three of us kind of are a good demonstration of that. And for me, when I was in college, I always knew I wanted to work in sports, but I never knew what that meant or what I wanted to do in sports. My dreams of being a player in sports, those were long gone at that point. But I think it's a good example. Like I honestly, when I was a student, getting out of school and didn't have an internship in the sports world, didn't have any experience, I got pretty discouraged at that point. And I thought, well, since I haven't done it now, then I'm done. I'm not ever going to see this dream. But like I said in the start, I always kept that goal in mind, as far as getting into sports. So, and I think in the end, it actually worked out really well because, nurtured my skills in the CRM area for about 4 or 5 years, and then was able to break into the industry, which is a similar story for all of us. We nurtured our skills outside, and then eventually always kept that goal in mind, and we're able to bring it back to sports. So, yeah, I'd say always keep that goal in mind. And to Chris's point too, networking obviously is huge. I know a lot of people get sick of kind of hearing that. And I know from my experience, it can be a grind at times. You'll reach out to a dozen people on LinkedIn and maybe one will get back to you. But, it's really those few that do get back to you and where you can forge those connections that are super important. So I think and we have a final slide here with our LinkedIn information. So really encourage all of you, whether you're a job seeker, just in the industry now, please do connect and reach out. And I know the 3 of us are always happy to chat. All right. So we got one more kind of on the other side of the job question, but someone who's already working in sports RevOps. What is the most critical component of changing the culture of our RevOps strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on that before, but I think it's really important and critical to discuss. In order to change the culture, I think you really need a strong leader at the helm, right? Someone who either comes in externally or someone that's moved up into that role, that has that mindset to kind of get everyone together and trust their staff, trust the departments to do their jobs. That's why they're hired. And I think that's, to me, one of the biggest things here is ensuring you have the perfect sponsor or executive sponsor that also ideally has experience in revenue operations or in a few of those departments, because then they could speak everyone's language and get everyone on board. So leadership is critical. I think it kind of goes without saying there with a lot of things, but especially with changing culture, I think without a strong leader there that gets everyone buying in, it's going to be difficult. If that is in place, then for those that work in middle management or entry level, you have, at that point, you will have an opportunity to voice your opinion, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of contribute to even in most cases much larger than your job description or scope entails, which I think a lot of us seek that. And so again, it goes back to leadership and just trusting your staff.
Yeah, I can echo that. It all starts at the top. You really need a good leader in there who understands what revenue operations is, the value of it, really what it brings to the table, and everything comes into place. And that's not to say if you don't have that you can't operate in this manner. So, I mean, worst case, you can still be collaborative. You can still work as the same team, even though if one reports here and the other reports here. It's common. It's everywhere. Not very few organizations are fully set up with a revenue operations model today. It's still kind of taken off. So worst case, just fake it till you make it.
Always good advice. And I think we can even, I feel like, piggyback that answer into one more question that was asked in the chat. Someone asked, have you found a great deal of resistance from leadership in allocating time and resources required to create a strong data infrastructure? And I think, it really goes back to having that strong leader that understands the values of all these different buckets, but analytics especially. When we had that slide where we kind of laid out the ideal revenue ops department structure, all those pillars were equal. It's not like ticket sales, sponsorships was above analytics. They're all equally important when it comes to your whole revenue ops structure. So I think, really having that that leader that understands the value of your analytics org and just how important that is really huge in not having that resistance and being able to really flourish that way. All right. I think we might have time for one more quick one here. Let's see. And for those that we didn't get to your questions, again, we'll have our LinkedIn info posted here afterwards. So please feel free to reach out if we didn't get up to you. So the last one here is, what goals and initiatives are we all excited to get after in 2025 with our respective orgs?
Charlie, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so I think for us, it's really been revenue attribution. I think, we spoke that a little bit earlier in the presentation, but that's what I'm most excited about. We've spent the last couple seasons really migrating to a new data warehouse. We actually use Kager, as I mentioned in the chat, and they are a godsend. They, without them, you would have to stand up an army of data engineers and tool sets, and definitely look into Kager if you guys are, looking to have kind of a more of a hands-off data engineering process that kind of really helps bring all the data sets together for you. So definitely huge shout out to those guys. But yeah, we've been migrating into a new data warehouse. We migrated off of Dynamics to Salesforce, went from Harmony to Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So ton of transition on that data and systems layer. So now that we've got that foundation built and in place, this is really where the fun starts, and we get to do things like revenue attribution and all these top level stuff that we just couldn't do until we got everything kind of figured out on the base.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that too. And Jonathan and me kind of similar boat here, where our teams both play in the newest stadiums in their leagues. And I know that that's the technology infrastructure in both of our buildings has really allowed us to capture a lot more data, a lot more real-time insights, especially in-game when it comes to people coming in the doors, concessions, merchandise, things like that. So now that we've really solidified that base, and for us at the Rangers, we've been in Globe Life Field. This will be our 6th season coming up. But now that we've really set that base, I look forward to kind of the optimization of what we're going to do kind of in that next step.
Yeah, for me, I'll just finish off in saying at the PWHL, everything is new. So we just entered season 2, right? I was hired in July as kind of the first business analytics hire here at the league, and so it's an amazing opportunity. There's so much to do here at the PWHL and growing women's hockey. And so for us, we're really starting at the ground floor with kind of that data operations pillar, right? So starting there, building up our foundation. Also with that, moving into more system ops with a CRM strategy and marketing strategy, email marketing strategy, and kind of building up into that pillar, and then trying to get to provide analytics kind of as we go, but making sure that what we're providing is accurate, right? So everything is new here at the PWHL, but the progress that we'll make in the next year is going to be incredible, and we'll be the goal is for us to be just as great in these areas as other professional leagues are in the near future.
Awesome, good stuff. We got about a minute left here. I think we just hit one, but Adam, hand it back over to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, sure. So thank you all for joining the webinar. Huge thank you for our incredible speakers, Jonathan, Chris, Jake. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can connect with our speakers directly on LinkedIn. Again, I'll share this presentation along with the speakers' LinkedIn's, which is already showing here. And don't forget, follow us on LinkedIn, Data Groomers LinkedIn, for any updates on future and past events. And if you'd like to schedule a demo to see how we can help you with your data management, duplicate data, data verification in Salesforce for your org, reach out to us directly at info@datagroomer.com. We hope that you found today's session insightful and inspiring. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you so much.